Welcome back to Talking Winter Ops. I'm Rick Nelson, and I'll be your host for the 2025 National Winter Maintenance and Road Weather Briefing Series. This is our opportunity to catch up with our partners in winter maintenance and road weather to find out what they've been working on this past year and what they're planning for the future. These briefings are a way to see if their work might fit into your operation. But before we get started, it's important to give a shout out to the briefing sponsors, starting with the AASHTO Winter Weather Management Technical Service Program, who sponsors Talkin' Winter Ops. Their parent AASHTO committee, the Committee on Maintenance, and their close ties with the Maintenance Operations Technical Working Group, and of course the state DOTs, whose yearly contribution to the Winter Weather Management Technical Service Program make all this possible. So sit back and listen in on this winter maintenance and road weather briefing. Todd May with the Indiana Department of Transportation. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thanks, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Todd, what exactly do you do there at the Indiana DOT?
I am. It's a really long title, but I am the director, the division director for the Department of Innovation and Process Improvement.
All right, that sounds like a pretty interesting department that you have there.
We are tasked with. We stood our department up about 5 years ago, going on almost 6 actually, and we are tasked with really gathering information and ideas from really all levels of our agency for ways for us to be better, safer, more efficient, and really deliver projects and products and our maintenance aspect in a better way. We collect ideas from everybody and try to implement the best through the year.
You know, that's such a cool approach. I know I spent many years as a district engineer, and you'd walk around the yard and you'd see that folks had come up with a very innovative way of solving a particular problem or a particular issue, and it was great for them, but they never told anybody about it. And so
Right.
it's like we never, it was difficult to take advantage of innovation because explaining and telling that story it just sort of fell through the cracks.
You're exactly right. We have quickly realized that the people who are doing the work have the best solutions, and that's our job really to listen to them and to celebrate those innovations. I've jokingly said, especially in the maintenance group, we can do anything if we have a little bit of signpost and some duct tape and maybe a few sheet signs. We can make about any tool or anything that we need to get the job done, and it's really true. We really live in the world of trust. We also live in a world where we see something and we say, well, how might we get this done? To date, we haven't had any situations where we've had to get human resources involved or anything along those lines. We've had situations where we've said, stop, this isn't a safe solution, let's figure it out. But we try to figure out how might we get some things done and really celebrate those as well. We have a mechanism in place within the state that we're very lucky to celebrate innovations that get implemented. I have a great group of folks that help and listen to those ideas and celebrate those ideas and really. The fun part is the recognition, and I often tell people I got the best job in the agency because I deliver good news on a pretty regular basis, and I see what our folks are doing and the pride with which they're doing it.
That's outstanding work. And so, Todd, to carry on with that theme, you're here to give us the briefing for the No Boundaries pooled fund study.
Exactly. So. One of the honors that I get to do is I'm the chairperson for the No Boundaries Innovation group, the Maintenance Innovation Pooled Fund group, and I'll give you a kind of a quick overview and some of the purposes of what we do with No Boundaries, and really give a kind of a top level view of how we celebrate the innovations within the maintenance group. The really, like I say, the aspect with innovation is really trying to get those ideas to the front. And our purpose and our goal and our histories and our members and our partners are really the piece that's super important with continuing with what No Boundaries does. We live in a world where we like to say we share tons of information and through our peer sharing and our database, and then we also rely on our partner CTC and Associates currently to create syntheses where information is needed, and we send them out. Questions. So if an agency is having a struggle in a particular maintenance operation, we can pull our group in that synthesis and get the information that hopefully will help them move forward. Um, you know, I said we're a pooled fund community of practice, and we really are focused solely in that maintenance world. We really work hard to identify those innovative technologies and practices that states are and DOTs are using, and then promote those with the other agencies, because at the end of the day, getting better, getting things done faster, but more importantly, getting things done safer. And some of those safety aspects are really they're very evident in what we're doing. They're very evident in how we get things done. But it's also getting our workers out of the flow of traffic. That's one of the big things that we often focus on. We have complementary agencies or complementary groups that we work really closely with. The AASHTO MAC, AASHTO Innovation Initiative, or AII, other national efforts. I also sit on and chair the Innovation Community of Practice, which is not solely focused on maintenance, but it's really innovative techniques and practices and processes. And we have I think we have close to 45 members. So those collaborations and those national efforts, they create a real synergistic effect, and and create an opportunity for states to have a safe environment to share information. We do meet. We have in-person meetings, and those in-person meetings are really focused on all four seasons of maintenance activities, and how those maintenance activities really start meshing together. Because if we're talking to folks in Louisiana, they don't do a lot of snow operations in Louisiana. So, but they sure do a lot of summer operations and drainage and those kinds of things. And we can learn from each other and have that real opportunity to learn from each other. That learning is really based in that sharing environment. And what are some of the things that we share? Oftentimes it's equipment solutions. Material solutions also is a key focus for us. Not everything works in every region of the country, but there are some things that are ubiquitous across the country that we can certainly apply and we can certainly share. And process solutions. A lot of times when people hear process change or process solutions, they think of a software, or the things that we try to do where it's entering your time and doing your timesheet or something along those lines. But those process solutions can also be focused on boots on the ground. How are we better at planning what we're doing, whether it's maintenance of traffic, maybe it's maintenance of materials, maybe it's allocations for tools, what is needed. But that network and that collaboration across the agencies, we get to learn firsthand. We get the people in the room and be able to have those conversations of what works, but most importantly, what doesn't work, right? So and why, and create that self examination, if you will, of our agencies to say, hey, we're really struggling in this area. Hey, Ohio, can you help us with this? And then also, what areas could be helpful where more investigation or more help or more questions, be that within our group, some of those groups that I talked about earlier that we collaborate with through ASHTO and other groups. But sometimes we also reach out to industry partners and say, we have 3 states that are really struggling with this. Is there something that you could help us with? And it creates an opportunity for us to learn. But the consistent maintenance activities that other agencies, among agencies, we're all filling potholes, right? We're all trying to figure out solutions to drainage or erosion or whatever those maintenance activities are, and try to align those policies and procedures and technologies. And I really like the last part of this bullet point that says when it makes sense. We're not a group that has a solution looking for a problem. More to the point, we are trying to figure out where those problems lie, what are some of the common grounds, and let's figure out what those solutions look like. Our goal, we do have, I mentioned the in-person meetings and interactions. It's a great group. It is a group that we just met up in Maine, and it was probably one of the better meetings we have, mostly because you really get those opportunities to have some real time with your peers. We have forum where questions are asked, and they're asked in an environment where people are not going to hear the answers that people think that they want to hear. They're going to hear the answers that are right and true. And sometimes that can create angst in any situation. But with this group, because we are so hyper focused on moving things forward and innovations moving forward, that safe environment creates that opportunity for collaboration and communication. Cost effectiveness is always top of the heap as far as the concerns that every agency has. We're all being asked to do more with less. We're all being asked to be more efficient with how we're doing. So duplicitous action and duplications of effort, we have a lot of conversations about. How can we be better at what we're doing and not going back and redoing things? And maximizing these products and services of what's available outside of, if you will, our proverbial 4 walls of our agencies. Sometimes, though, that minimization of duplicitous effort, the upfront cost seems like it's really high. But if you think about return visits to that pothole that we've had to fill 4 and 5 and 6 times, all of a sudden that patching material that we're using that comparatively is higher cost than what we're using now. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, it's actually saving us money on the long run. We began back in about 2011, give or take. I have been on No Boundaries since we started the innovation group in Indiana. So this is about my 5th year. The relationships that we have developed across states is really it's amazing. I am very confident to say that any member within No Boundaries can pick up the phone and call one of the other members, whether it's in New York calling California or wherever, and the conversation is robust and it's honest, and we're here to help each other. The synergy around common challenges and problems and opportunities with the DOTs. We're not reinventing the wheel here. Sometimes we're stealing the wheel that somebody else is using, right? If it's an innovation for us, it may be something that another agency's been doing for several years. But at the end of the day, we're going to steal ideas, and it's an open share, open forum, and we readily encourage stealing the best practices. But some of these practices are homegrown. As I mentioned earlier in our conversation before we started, I often say a little signpost, some duct tape, and some sheet signs, we can make about anything. And some of those homegrown innovations can really be huge helps. But there are off-the-shelf innovations also that work, and we see those demonstrated through some of our forums. We started as only 8 people, and I think I mentioned, but we're up to about 22 states that are currently involved and actively involved within No Boundaries. Well, 20 states. We have 20 states that are our area, our maintenance areas that we really hyper focused on are bridges and pavements. Roadside equipment is always a very robust conversation, and then also our ops. How do we also manage our assets? What are some of the considerations around maintenance and lifespan for some of these assets that we have? Training, recruitment, and retention is a challenge for, regardless of what state you talk to. And how do we do that? There's a link there, maintainroads.org, where all of the documents and resources we store those, and that's a sharing forum for our group, as well as others can visit there. We have weekly news postings that go out to the group, but go out to those groups, those other organizations such as AIM and AASHTO and R&I that share and readily share some of the good things that are happening within No Boundaries. Here's a quick eye chart for our members. As you can see, the 20 members really stretch from coast to coast as well as north to south. It's a really great cross section and affords us the opportunity to have conversations about a multitude of maintenance activities, whether it's the heat in Southern California or Southern Texas to the super cold in our northern reaches in northern Maine. Snow ops obviously is a big, and I know there are other pooled funds such as Clear Roads, but there's maintenance activities that every one of these states are doing that we share and openly share and discuss those. We liaise and partner with tons of people. This is just this is a short list. So FHWA obviously is a great partner with us. AASHTO, the TRB, APWA, the Front Range and Clear Roads Pool Fund are great partners. They are partners that we know that we can reach out to for additional information. They often come back to us and say, hey, I know I happened to see on your website, or I heard that you guys had a conversation around this or that or the other topic. We're happy to help. How can we help you do this? And that collaboration again and communication just continues to ramp up the synergy of what innovation and the innovation culture is. Some of our highlighted activities and resources. We just got back, as I mentioned, from Portland just a couple 3 weeks ago. It was a wonderful, great meeting. It's probably one of the better ones that we've had. The picture on the bottom is at one of the Portland sign shops. We got to tour the sign shop and see how some of the innovations within the sign shop, as far as making sheet signs, how they lay out their sheet signs, how they are very in tune with resource management. We know that the price of some of the materials in and around our sign making is going up and continues to go up. So how are they being more mindful and more good stewards of taxpayer monies? The other picture in Fargo is actually to remove debris from the roadside, I believe. And again, it's an opportunity to share a piece of equipment that is, I mentioned those off the shelf solutions. This is a solution that in some areas of the country is incredibly helpful because it gets workers out of the ditch line or out of the hazardous work zone, whereas a piece of equipment can go in and it's much faster, it's easier, and again, it creates an opportunity to be much safer for our workers and for the traveling public. We have technical presentations, roundtable discussions, a show and tell. Each state brings some of the top innovations in the maintenance world, and we share those with our group. And it's an opportunity again to brag and shamelessly brag on some of the things that the agencies are doing, but more importantly, to share those ideas and openly share those solutions to the other states. Equipment and product demonstrations. We also went in Maine to one of their brine making facilities. I have to say it was one of the best, most efficient areas that I've seen, and they do this activity for their road crews and in making brine faster, easier, more efficient, and ultimately safer, so that they can do their snow ops much faster and better. In Fargo, again, some of the same things, round table, outside vendors. One thing that I think is really, really important to mention, specifically around the Fargo meeting, was the community college presentation on highway management program. Again, I mentioned that we tried to look outside of our own little group, so that we bring in these subject matter experts to give us insight from I guess an outside eye, or a third eye, if you will, and create that conversation of how might we get some things done. Virtual reality training is also becoming more and more a necessity, but also an implemented innovation within the agency. It's something in Indiana that we use in our snowplow training. We have driving simulators that we use, and it has paid off greatly in reduction of accidents, but also in the efficiency with which we do our snow ops. Again, I mentioned in Portland, we had a great conversation around the Strategic Workforce Development Program. This is an area where the opportunity for us to look outwardly, but also to create opportunities for agencies to have workforce and workforce development. We had a subject matter expert come in to talk about flared outlet diffusers. This is an again, a maintenance operation where if we have a drainage issue and we need a drainage solution, this was a presentation that highlighted how to better get water out of a flooded area. It increases culvert capacity and resilience, and again becomes a safety operation, because obviously water is going away, preservation of the roadway, but also the maintenance activity is significantly reduced. And then lastly, or I shouldn't say lastly, excuse me, peer information sharing, research syntheses I mentioned and touched on earlier. These are quick turnaround searches with our group. I would say we get at least 2 to maybe 3 requests a week from somebody within our group of, does anybody have any information on XYZ? And it goes out in an email blast to the group, and the opportunity for everybody to weigh in and to pull information from across the country and answer these questions is marvelous. We've talked about maintenance training with virtual reality, acquisition and management, equipment acquisition and management. What are some of the challenges to the lifespan of equipment? How can we acquire equipment better? What are some of the other state innovation programs aside from No Boundaries? What are some of the innovations, and how are those innovation groups dovetailing and working with the No Boundaries group? And then training and reality, I touched on again, but the virtual reality and the maintenance training, what we found is that not only is it a wonderful thing for the safety of our workers and the safety of the traveling public, but it also creates a tool for retaining talent. If people feel comfortable in what they're doing and invested in, it creates an environment for retaining talent. On our website, this is on the right side, you see our website. We are very focused on sharing having a database that is shareable. So if somebody goes onto our website and says, I want some information on guardrail, the keyword search, and it comes up with solutions on the guardrail. Again, news updates, maintenance related research and news. It's just an ever-flowing information source to help solve problems for our maintenance workers. If you'd like to learn more, we're going to have an upcoming event in South Carolina in the spring of 26. We're in the planning phases for that. but the maintainroads.org is our website. You can go on and explore the database. You can also subscribe if you want to the weekly news posts, easy for me to say, during and those are really pretty relevant to the group. And of course, YouTube for videos and Flickr for any photos and whatnot. So that's a quick down and dirty overview of what the No Boundaries group does. I will say that it is becoming more robust. It's becoming an area where people are noticing what maintenance innovation means, but also innovation as a whole means. I will share, as an aside, when we first started, innovation was kind of a buzzword. Everybody was throwing this out. We need to innovate. We need to innovate. And now that has changed to really innovation means more than just we got to do things better. It's really becoming a world of its own, and people are seeing the benefit of doing things better and doing things more efficiently and safer. So hopefully that answers some questions around No Boundaries, and I appreciate everybody.
Well, Todd, that was an excellent briefing. I've sort of been following the No Boundaries. I'm on the newsletter, and there are some really interesting things that pop up that you don't really think about. It's like you say, this idea of synergy and just being able to see how other folks have attacked a particular problem. Sparks interest. It says, geez, I wonder why I never thought of that.
Right. I can tell you that we've experienced it within the state. Indiana has 6 districts across the state. And in our own little world of, we will have an idea that comes from, say, the northern part of the state, and all of a sudden the district in the very most southern part says, wait a minute, we have that problem too, but we never really talked to anybody about it. The same can be true with No Boundaries. We'll have a situation where I'll bring up a challenge or something that we're doing, and another state from the far reaches of Utah or whatever says, oh my gosh, we've had the same challenge, and here's a solution that we've worked toward. It's been really refreshing to know that you're not alone in a lot of situations.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I want to just sort of go back to this whole idea of R&D. We used to call R&D rip off and duplicate. It's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
there's no reason to reinvent the wheel if it's already been invented. And I think No Boundaries does just an excellent job of spreading that word that here's how we've approached this particular situation, and it's there just isn't the resource. There aren't the human resource, the monetary resource, the equipment resource, to jump in and just solve all of your own problems. It's like you've got to lean on other folks, and that network is so important.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more. It's interesting, and you sparked a question that I get often is, well, where does innovation begin and research begin, and where do they? And there are times, the best definition I've heard 2 definitions between research and innovation that seem to work well. Innovation often are ideas that flow from the bottom up, so that the organization, it's the boots on the ground, whereas research comes from kind of the top down. The other even better definition I've heard is the time to implementation. Oftentimes, innovative ideas, we know within a few seconds if they're going to work or not. If it's a tailgate prop that holds the tailgate up on a dump truck, we know pretty quick if it's going to hold it or not. We don't need a couple of years of research. But the key part is where they meet, and they need to meet at the implementation piece. Anything, whether it's a research project or whether it's an innovation project, it doesn't do anyone any good if it's not implemented. And that's where the rubber really, no pun intended, but where the rubber meets the road is to get it implemented and get it out and get it moving and working and being done.
Yeah, absolutely. Todd, thanks so much. What we'll do is in the show notes, we'll put your email address, we'll put Kirsten's there, the website. I would encourage folks if they've got questions about no boundaries, how it works, what it might do to help them in their daily activities. I would encourage them to reach out and send an email, visit the website, find out more about what's going on at No Boundaries.
Great. Thank you again for the time. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Todd, you have yourself a good day.
We're going to do our best. Be safe.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
You can listen to all the briefings and other Talkin' Winter Ops episodes on our website, talkinwinterops.com, or wherever you get your podcast content. Video versions are available on Talkin' Winter Ops YouTube channel, and if a slide deck was used during this briefing, it's available through a link in the show notes, along with the presenter's email, so you can reach out and get more information. Thanks for listening in, and until next time, stay safe out there.